Before we do introductions, let's see if anybody is online. Who's online, please? Anyone? I thought Eric was at least calling in. And Shannon might. Hearing none. Okay, so I'm Charlie Johnson. I'm the chair of this committee. This is our first meeting since, well, way back in, did we meet in November? Late October, early November? Yeah, it was last year. And let's just go around the table.
Claire Hughes, Clubhouse Hotel and Suites.
Shirley Hughes, Visit Fargo Moorhead.
Jim Gilmore, city staff.
Emma McIntyre, Folkways.
Kate Ballstead, Southeast Education Cooperative.
Dave Pepcorn, Fargo City Commission.
Susan Thompson, City of Fargo Finance Director.
Taylor Snelling, owner Mezzaluna.
Okay, just checking one more time. Anybody online? Okay. We're going to review developer questions. That's the crux of what we're here for today. Jim, did you give them to Brian to put on the screen, or are we just going to follow along on paper? Okay, everybody's got a copy of this, right? Jim and Shirley and Mallory and I met earlier this week to go through some of these things, to prep some answers for you to review as we did the last time. So we'll go through these and see if anybody has any questions. Starting with the first one, will Visit Fargo Moorhead be allocating any portion of capital grant fund to the convention center build operations or long-term capital maintenance improvements? If so, what's the specific amount or allocation? The answer we have given here is VFM has not allocated any portion of the capital grant fund to the convention center at this time. Shirley, you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think what our thoughts are at this point is that we will invest in marketing and salespeople towards actually marketing and filling the convention center at this point. That is our plan.
I think that's good clarification. Is there any chance we can include it in the answers for people to review later?
Sure.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I think the question is probably, though, what we've heard from at least one of the developers is if there's not enough money, if that $47 or $41 million isn't enough, where's it going to come from? And, you know, there is 1% of sales tax that could be used for capital projects. And is that even an option?
I think it depends on how much is the investment that's needed, and we can only do so much a year, obviously, because of what we receive. So I think that at this point, I didn't want to commit that we absolutely will. I've said we're open to it, but for sure we will commit in people and marketing for this facility. We won't know until it opens. I'm assuming that's when we would commit the dollars versus before. I don't know. It was discussed prior to my joining.
Well, there was never any discussion of any specific allotment. The board and I discussed the idea that prior to your arrival that, if there were holes in the budget going forward, that.
There you go. Now I'm doing something different.
Eric? Is that Eric?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Eric. We can hear you.
Eric, we can hear you. Maybe he can't hear us.
Okay. Now you can hear me. All right.
Yep.
Sorry about that. Technology problems.
That's all right. We're glad you're here. Thank you.
Thank you.
So anyway, we discussed the idea that, if necessary, there might be some point where you would get asked. And the board is like, well, we'll decide then. I don't know that, this seems kind of specific at the beginning, especially about the convention build. We never talked about any of that. This was more about down the road if there were holes in the operating budget.
I think the tone to a lot of these answers is, look, we have the 38 to 41 million. You need to show us how much we can get for that. So if it's going to cost more, you need to scale it back.
Okay, that makes sense.
And maybe for clarification, because I know the capital grant fund is specifically for capital investment, you'd shared that there might be support to use that for operating gaps. Is that for sure, or would it just go to capital investment on the building?
I guess that
It's the capital grant portion of the state statute that set up the third percentage, which was originally for capital only kind of things. But I believe it was in 1997, I discovered that a legislator from somewhere out west was wanting to use some of that money for something else. It's tourism related. It has to be tourism related. But they added the word tourism or capital tourism-related capital things. So it opened a much broader spectrum of things that money can be used for, and that informed our decision at that time, which was about 10, 11 years ago, to be able to use, we asked the city, got permission to use portions of that capital fund also for bid fees and event assistance, which we have done. So the state statute specifically originally held it to just capital, but then again in 1997 there was an amendment made that changed it to allow for tourism or tourism-related capital things.
Which we also believe with some of these events as investments in bid fees and other things that we need to commit might be larger. So already addressing how do we handle that when it happens. So again, different ways to look at how we can contribute overall.
Okay. There's a broader discussion about funding here that might come up later, but let's keep going through here. Number 2, do you have a recommended size or aspect ratio for the proposed layout? Jim correctly wrote, the city wants the developer to propose what they feel is most appropriate. I did circle the word size, though, and I mean, the reference is in the RFP, and again, it comes down to knowing what the financial constraints are. Give us your best shot, I think is what we're looking for. We told them what our desire is. Of course, we know that funding may have some limit on it.
Do you think this is asking, like structurally where rooms are placed? So is there more to this question? Are they not asking the size, but they're asking like how you could configure it into different spaces?
I interpreted it as like the print of it, like what's the aspect ratio they want to see on printed paper. I don't know if that's incorrect, but
Yeah, and either way, so do they want us to design it for them? I don't think that's kind of the way I read that. I mean, we're not architects and designers. We told them, again, in the RFP, what we'd really like to see is a size, if that's possible. And I think we said it preferably contiguous for 50,000 square feet. Well, that kind of, I don't think it should be like 6-to-1 ratio, It's going to be probably like a TV screen, 16 by 9, I don't know, whatever, to be divided. I don't think we need to, why would we get into that detail? That's not for us to
Emma,
say.
is your question though, like how specific, like how architecturally detailed they're asking? I hadn't thought of it that way.
I was
but if
thinking
that's
like
what you're asking.
scale, like they want to know
Okay.
at what point scale they should be providing their proposal on. Was
Well,
kind of how I
if that's the
interpreted it.
question they're asking, I think this second round proposal should be more detailed than the first round. Isn't that what we anticipated, that we'd want something more closer to what they think it's going to end up like? I mean, everybody knows once you start building and do the actual final design, there might be a few changes here or there, but I think what we're looking for is, this is the chance for them to revise their first proposal, and it should look pretty much like what we're going to get, because we're going to take these and make recommendations to the city commission to pick a project. So it should be what they intend to deliver.
Agreed. As close as possible.
Yeah, as close as possible, yeah. Commissioner?
Can I just add, Charlie, we have a quorum now, correct?
Correct.
The mayor joined us, so now we have a quorum. 1, 2.
We have 14 members on the committee, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Shannon, have you called in?
Yep, Charlie, I'm here.
Okay, so we do have a quorum, for sure, yes. Do you have any comments you want to add, anything we've talked about so far?
Not so far, just listening away.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we're official for the time being, at least, until somebody leaves again. Okay, anything else about that one? How does the city define responsibility boundaries between city-funded infrastructure improvements and privately funded site work, particularly utilities, roadway modifications, and pedestrian connections? Jim's answer to this is, the city wants the developer to propose what they feel is most appropriate. Any proposed city responsibilities will need to be funded by the convention center budget.
I think what you'll find on this question, and almost all of them now, it's more of a cut and paste. This is the general answer to, we're not going to tell you exactly, how to design your building. We want you to come to us with an idea. That's why it's an RFP. We're just open to your ideas, and we're not going to try to answer specifically, how many shrubs are we going to need or all of that. So as we go through this, you'll notice this is the draft answer I put on almost probably 80% of the questions.
And there's a theme to some of these questions. Similar questions pop up places elsewhere, like snow removal and things like that. And I feel like if there's an existing structure, an existing street, nothing's really going to change, is it? In the way the city handles those things. I mean, if wherever it's built, whatever street it's built on that already is a street, I'm sure we can assume the city will continue to do snow removal on that. The only thing that would come up would be if there were new driveways, whatever, that need to be taken care of. That's where convention center funding would come in. So,
But I think the point is, sorry, I think the point is like the developer then needs to identify, if I'm putting one of these on my plans, I'm paying, who's paying for that? That's what we're saying, is the developer should suggest it, but they need to, they can't leave it ambiguous.
right. Yeah, the answer is correct, absolutely.
Just real
Yeah.
quick, that's their proposed budget is part of this. That's all these, to me, there's a theme. They want to know about all these things. It's like, no, that's part of what we're expecting you to show us what your plan is. Your financial plan, snow removal, all those, that's all the minutia. Does that make sense?
Yeah, these are all fair questions, so we're giving them the answers. All right.
But Jim, if somebody comes in, like, let's say, the Shields Arena site, and then we have to change driveways or do stuff, there would be some stuff we special assess. Would normally special assess to a developer or not? If we have to change any roadways or do something, that's not really convention cost, that's access cost.
If we needed to change our roadways, that would have to come out of this overall budget because, the city, I suppose, could special assess that, but then that would go against this building and we would have to put that in our budget.
So actually, that has to come out of the 40 million, is what you're
Yeah.
telling me. So in the Civic Center, if they're going to modify the back-end loading dock area, that's the cost of the project?
Yes.
Okay.
Charlie, we have one other new member, Joe Raso just came, just so you
Yeah,
know. Now we have a full quorum.
if you're listening and not watching, Joe Raso has joined the party. So, are there any known city-known subsurface conditions, geotechnical constraints, environmental considerations on the preferred sites that proposers should assume for Phase 2 cost modeling? We said no. Didn't we have a bunch of meetings about this?
I mean.
That's not to say something can't crop up again that we don't know
City
about.
staff met with all of these, and I think if there was something we were aware of, we would have, like the lift station out here, certainly are aware of that, but there are no, other conditions that we're aware of, like more below ground.
Okay. Next page. What level of off-site infrastructure, improvements, street upgrades, signalization, utility extension should be assumed as required versus optional enhancements? Jim came up with, city wants the developer to propose what they feel is most appropriate. Did you have that like in a macro? I bet you did.
Yeah, just cut and paste all of this.
Any proposed city responsibilities would need to be funded by the convention center budget. It's kind of similar to some of the other ones
Yeah.
we've already answered, so. How does the city envision long-term maintenance, security, and operational responsibility for public realm elements adjacent to the convention center, plazas, skyways, pedestrian corridors? City wants the developer to propose what they feel is most appropriate. Any proposed city responsibility, same answer, okay.
Is part of this, though, would we encourage them to come up with a plan to, like if it's shared between the convention center and the hotel, if they're sharing the space? I mean, that's something we would encourage them to put a split in for that, right?
Yeah, and yes, I think that certainly is a fair assessment. I don't mean to use the word assessment, that was bad. A fair assessment of the
And
answer.
not in this room.
The answer of the question, yeah. Not financial assessment, but. I made a little note here when I was going through these earlier today, existing structures, question mark. I mean, I feel like if, if you're going to attach to an existing skyway without expanding it or something, I mean, the maintenance of that remains the same as it always is. Is that a fair assessment to say? Just like the streets. If we're not building any new streets, the city will continue to maintain those streets and sidewalks as it always has. That's what I think. Anybody disagree? If there are new new things, new sidewalks, new driveways, as we mentioned before, then that's a different story. Okay? Joe?
Just question on that, Charlie. So when those streets and those skyways have been put in the past, who had the responsibility for them originally?
I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, if it's an existing city street, the city would continue to maintain that. If it's out by Shields Arena, where you have that facility has responsibility to take care of their driveways and their parking, that would continue.
Okay. I was just thinking, skyways down here, and there's another skyway built. How are the skyways down here taken care of originally? City have a responsibility for it, or?
I mean, the city built them, there was a special assessment, there were transportation funds used. Right now, I believe there's a annual special assessment for skyway maintenance.
Correct.
So if,
Yeah.
And
For
it's
the
billed-
maintenance.
It's billed out to the businesses on the Skyway, right?
Correct.
Yes.
I've been trying to envision all four proposals as I go through these, and I don't know how much of this is going to come into play, It'll be vary a little bit among each of them, but they all have slightly different circumstances based on their location, so I think it'll all work out. Are there any specific standards or preferences regarding snow storage, snow removal logistics, and winter pedestrian circulation that should inform site and landscape design? Same answer. I made a little note to myself here. I assume they're not going to design any natural snow collecting corners. I imagine they'll take that into account. But if the driveway's on the private property, then they'll have to deal with it. The city will continue to maintain its streets the way it always does, right? Sidewalks.
I was wondering if there's any guidelines the city currently has on snow and snow removal that we could present, like what happens with the Fargo Dome or other examples that currently exist.
I think they're all different. In some ways, they pile it up and let it melt in the spring. Other areas where they need the parking and they haul it away.
Correct. But, pedestrian, obviously, you need to get those done within 24 hours. And I wasn't exactly sure what they were getting at with this. It was kind of a broad question.
So Charlie, just on this, is there been, or will there be, or should be these one-on-one conversations related to these items then, so that the city can give a response back, site-specific?
I mean, I think what we'd really like them to do is propose what they think they need to make this work. When we actually get into phase 3 and there's a development agreement, then all of these things are going to have to be addressed down to the minutia.
Okay, but I guess my thought here is that take any of these sites and the current way in which the city deals with whatever's being proposed on that site. I guess if I was a developer, I'd want to know, because that's going to be figuring into my costs of the development, right? To even be considered as the finalist.
This happened to come from Enclave that has the Shields Arena, and so there's no storage. If, they may just plan to pile it up and let it melt in the spring, they have plenty of room, there's some vacant lots out there, maybe that's their strategy. Or they can say they're gonna haul it away. What we do know is the city isn't gonna budget to haul it away.
Yeah, I don't know that we would need to set up more meetings. I mean, we had the technical city issues meetings with each of the four of them before Christmas. Like Jim says, I think the details of that will get worked out when we get narrowed down to the primary selection.
My guess is too, this might be part of figuring out operational budgets.
Snow removal for sure.
Yeah, from that, and that might be where they're trying to find.
It's part of your budget.
Stuff. Yeah, it is part of my budget. Yes, it is.
Yeah, of course it would be snow removal is part of maintenance, absolutely. Okay, is there a preferred approach to bus staging, layover, and overflow queuing during peak events, particularly relative to adjacent streets or parcels. Again, the city wants the developer to propose what they feel is most appropriate. My addition to that would be, this is just going to depend a lot on the location, and it's also going to vary greatly from event to event. I think, I made a note of this later too, it'll come up again, that I kind of think people have a slightly unrealistic expectation of how much additional traffic this facility is going to drive. There will never be a convention that's like Taylor Swift at the Fargo Dome. That's never going to happen. And the traffic guys told us that when they came in here last fall and went through the changes. The changes, they said, were minuscule, basically, to the traffic that was going to be associated with this. So I don't think it's going to be that big a problem. I mean,
Well,
you'll have to have a plan for it, but it's not, we're not talking about 10,000 people coming into town.
I also think it depends on the location, because if you're talking about shuttle drop-off and staging, it will depend, to your point, on the size of the event. It will depend on the location, if it's access right next to a street, or if there's other access around the facility that you could stage. If you've all been to conventions where you've had to get on the bus and go to the next location again, or they keep them over somewhere else and they bring them around. And we talked about this the other day, is it working with city police or whoever, just making sure that everything's blocked up as they need. I think, to your point, it just depends on what event is happening at that time. Or if it's Shields Arena, as an example, there's something else going on at the same time that there's a convention going on as well.
Yeah, you could see that happening at both Shields Arena or the Fargo Dome, to a lesser extent at Bruhala, that there could be two events happening, of great size. So they just have to be ready for that. Of course, you have to have bus staging. There's going to be shuttle buses. Everyone's going to have that figured into their equation.
I mean, it's kind of basic, like you need to follow the traffic rules. You can't take up
Right.
can't park your bus in the middle of the street, and you need to be courteous to your neighbors and, things like that, but yeah.
So, and again, if they're, and all these questions, if they're asking if they need to take this into account, then the answer is yes, right? Of course they should. Okay.
Is there, maybe this is a silly question, is there like a bus number that we would want? Like at any time, X amount of buses should be able to unload at the front of the venue?
Because we're relying on them to propose that, probably going to need to be at least a couple, but, maybe they will want to have more. Someone else might want to have one and figure that the bus is going to be, down at the end of the block, and then we're just going to rotate it up.
Don't know, but if they're looking at it, like, what is the capacity of the facility? And assuming that, pretend everybody got on a bus that was in the facility, I don't think that'll happen, but if, I guess that's maybe how I would, look at that. That would probably, and again, to your point, where you stage them versus off-site staging potentially versus like right there as people go in and out and move through.
Yeah, I think it'll have to be worked out, but it'll vary from event to event. It's not going to be like McCormick Place where they have like 15 buses lined up, Okay. What assumptions should proposers make regarding shared parking agreements, public parking utilization, or future parking structures not directly funded within this project? The city wants the developer, blah, 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 to propose what they, to feel is most appropriate. The city does not have funds for future parking structures. I don't think anyone's going to argue with that.
I believe we've answered that prior as well.
Multiple times, yeah. Are there any constraints or preferences regarding paid versus free parking during convention events? How parking revenue, if any, is treated operationally? Again, the city wants the developer to propose what they feel is most appropriate.
I don't think it's inappropriate for paid parking. I did some looking into like the Bismarck Event Center and I mean, as a committee, I don't know if we have a preference, but like Bismarck charges for parking and a lot immediately next to it, and then they've got free parking around.
Right.
I think I saw the Alaris charges for parking in the general vicinity. Fargo Dome charges for parking. I don't know if we have a preference as a committee if it would impact a decision. Maybe additional information we could provide them with, but.
Yeah, I'm not here to throw Shirley under the bus, but put her on the spot. But, if there's a big enough event that you want to come and it's going to have a huge drive-in component and the only option is probably paid parking, that's something that could come out of event assistance. If it's necessary to attract the event.
Yeah.
I think that's that, especially if it's an open field and you're parking, you can decide is it $2, is it $20 for that event. Again, to that point, I think anywhere you go, typically there's paid parking for events. Again, could be big, could be small, so.
Yeah.
If it's from a competitor perspective, Emma, to your point, yes, what are our competitors doing? Bismarck and Grand Forks get events that we can't have yet. So again, that would go into consideration when they're trying to bring that event here. Yeah.
It's all part of the negotiation.
And I would also look at that with whoever the partner is and go, what do we need to do to be competitive in the region from that perspective, once we know who it is.
This, again, more parking. The next question, how does the city anticipate coordinating traffic control and event-related transportation management during large conventions? Want the developers to propose what they feel is most appropriate. Any proposed city responsibilities will be needed to be funded by the convention center budget. And this is, again, where I initially made the note about there's a little bit of an unrealistic expectation about how many people are going to be coming to each individual event. But yes, we will have to figure out how to manage it on a case-by-case basis, right?
I think a good frame of reference for people is I know this is larger than the Delta, but there's generally not police assistance. Moving people in and out of the Delta is like a good way to think about it. I didn't know if there was a precedent for the Fargo Dome that we could share or the Shields Arena and how they navigate those things. Cost-wise, I agree. I don't think there's going to be a huge need for it, but if there's any info we can share with developers on what the precedent is.
Well, actually, the police department is working on a new event policy whereby they have, depending on the range of people and what type of event it is, they are going to require a certain number of police officers to be present. So that doesn't necessarily tie specifically to traffic control, but something similar. And for example, the police department's not going to reach out to your convention and say, hey, we'll be there. The promoter is going to have to call them and schedule it and talk through it, and then there'll be a bill that comes with it. So.
Yeah, traffic control at Shields, if there's a concert or a hockey game going on the same night as you're having your convention, you're going to have to coordinate there. But the convention center or activity itself probably not going to create much traffic.
And we're not completely reinventing the wheel here, right? I mean, some of these questions suggest to me that people think there's never been an event in Fargo before. We know how to handle these things. I mean, right? So I don't mean that in an insulting way, but I mean, other things happen that bring people in the community in much bigger groups than is going to happen with this in most cases. So, okay, next
The
page.
Fargo Dome had a wrestling event the other weekend, and the men's basketball team was playing, and the parking was packed.
Yeah.
But I didn't see any increased police presence. It was just people doing the usual work they do. And if you went to the basketball game, you were a little inconvenienced because it was harder to find a parking spot. But we're used to that.
All event producers with any experience know how to arrange for security and traffic assistance, right? So, yeah. Okay, next page. Are there specific booking types, event profiles, or target conventions that should drive space sizing, divisibility, and adjacency priorities beyond what was outlined in phase one? Again, the city wants the developer to propose what they feel is most appropriate. This kind of falls into your bailiwick, Shirley. It's kind of like that same one about, configuring the space.
Yeah, this came up, I think, in most of our meetings with each of them, just talking about how we would work together, just sort of the aesthetics and other things. I think that's, obviously, we said that from the beginning. We want that to be a part of this if possible. I know that's a budget thing. We've said to a few of them, can we be creative and think about what that is and isn't? Are those elements that you could add along the way as well, potentially, whether that's art or, you know what I mean? I think that that's extremely important to us. So it doesn't look like just a big four-walled box. So I think let's see what you can do with what you've got, and then let's go from there.
Next question kind of relates to this. How should proposers prioritize It's basically the configuration question again. Flexibility versus maximum capacity when evaluating ballroom and exhibit hall configurations. Again, it comes back to propose what you think you can afford to build in the best way possible, right?
Right, we did the layout in the RFP, right, of what we wanted to be maximum capacity, ideal maximum capacity. So it is, again, I think as long as it's, it can be moved and changed and you have air walls and other things that you need to do, but then you have enough to do the one big event, I think, and I don't remember the number we gave, but that's just technology and that we don't know in building these spaces that are very malleable, for lack of better terms.
Yeah. And then the next one, does the city have preferences or constraints regarding column-free spans, clear heights, and full load capacities beyond minimum industry standards? Well, the answer we gave to this is pretty specific. Large rooms should be free of columns. That you can't have a bunch of columns in a ballroom, you know. And floor load capacity should be capable of supporting trucks. That's the most specific answer we could come up with for this. I mean, you know, you have a drive-in dock, and you don't want the floor to crack if you bring, you know, an SUV in, so, or a truck. Okay.
And I do think we were pretty clear in the RFP of what those load-in
thought it was.
requirements should be as well.
Yeah, I think so too. How important is future horizontal or vertical expansion capability relative to first cost efficiency and phase two scoring? To this, we said expansion capability is important, and the cost of the facility cannot exceed the 38 to 41 million budget. I think that pretty much answers it. Horizontal or vertical expansion, I'm not a construction guy. I don't know which one costs more. I would be surprised. Most of the expansion we've seen in the proposals, the expansion areas were horizontal, not building up.
I would think vertical would be more expensive.
Yeah, I would think so.
I'm not an architect, but I would think because of,
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to say.
And you have to
Thank
plan,
you.
and you have to plan for it when you're building the first level, right? Yes, Commissioner.
So just real quick, in the RFP, under the architectural concept drawings, space for expansion, that's one of the things on the list. So it is on, I mean, that's one of the things in the RFP, which we brought that up at the beginning, correct?
Yep, and I think every one of the proposals included expansion. I mean, they all addressed it, so. I don't want to miss anybody online. Have anything they want to add to any of this? Shannon or Eric? Okay.
No, thank you.
Okay. Okay, where to leave off? Are there expectations for integrating local or regional cultural elements beyond aesthetics? For example, programming, naming curated public spaces. Again, we say the city wants the developer to propose what they feel is most appropriate. This has come up, of course. We'd like the building as much as possible to feel like it belongs here in Fargo and maybe has some historical reference if possible, but we also understand the constraints of the construction budget. Okay.
Yeah, Charlie, I thought this was a good question. You know, I sit on that arts and amenities committee right now for the airport, and we're in a very large discussion, different setting in the fact that the airport is very much, you know, visitor travel, but there's a lot of aspects that would be the same. So we have a pretty in-depth, robust discussion around what the policy is going to be, or whose role it is to get, if indeed we want to have naming rights, sponsors, if we want to tell the story of top industries in their region or top higher education institutions. I think that was where maybe some of this is coming towards is, do you want it more of a storytelling component of it than just a convention center? And is there ways to add beautification elements to that? So yeah, not sure what the best answer of that was, but I thought it was a good question of, is that under the auspice of the developer or under the city? So.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing that can come into play, I think, a little bit further down the line. I don't mean to put it off, but I think as it is with the airport now, you're discussing how to provide artistic flourishes that will make it seem pleasing and also a local thing. So that's the kind of thing you kind of see what you're going to build first and then try to make it, find ways to adapt it as best you can.
But yeah, but also could be added revenue if it's
Oh, yeah.
paid marketing or sponsorship aspects. Yep.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Could be a revenue stream, yep. All right, thanks, Shannon. Does the city anticipate owning core technology infrastructure, AV backbone fiber, Wi-Fi systems, or should proposals assume full responsibility through design, procurement, and operation? Again, the city wants the developer to propose what they feel is most appropriate. Any proposed city responsibilities will need to be funded by the convention center budget. I think that covers it. Are there performance benchmarks for bandwidth, redundancy, or broadcast capability that the city expects proposers to meet or exceed? Again, we want this developer to propose what they feel is most appropriate. A little bit cart before the horse in my book, but
I think at bare minimum, it's competitive with other venues in our region that we're able to provide the same amount of
Yeah.
technology that those are as well. I had on my note to ask Kent if there's anything we should know about this.
yeah, we
be a
could
good
we could
person to
add a
talk
line to that, maybe saying we would expect the facility to have robust communications capabilities comparable to competitive facilities.
Like if they're wanting to live stream it,
Yeah.
it's something we wouldn't want
Yeah.
to short ourselves of. So whatever's needed to do those competitive things.
I don't know if I could say that same sentence again, Jim, so. I liked it, but I don't remember it. Yeah, it should be comparable to competitive, as good or better than, yeah, okay. Are there performance well, that's the one I just did, right? Okay. How does the city view third-party AV exclusivity versus hybrid or preferred vendor models from an operational and customer experience standpoint? Propose what you feel is most appropriate. Any proposed city responsibilities will be funded by the convention center budget. Shirley, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think it's what they're trying to propose, and I don't know that, or we're open, I would guess, to see what the options are.
Yeah.
I think in discussions, the conclusion we came to was the optimal option for event planners and
Yeah.
whatever would incentivize event planners to
Yeah.
want to. I think
Flexibility is important.
flexibility is important, and I think being able to have options is something that's appealing.
Is that standard within the convention center industry? That, if it's a small event, that the convention center can do it in-house, but if it's a large event like state, whatever.
Yeah, I think it just
cities-
depends on the facility,
Okay.
how new or old it is as well, and if it's been upgraded. I think a preferred vendor model is interesting if you have maybe one or two or three vendors that you could choose from, like you would on a catering sort of thing. I think it just depends if it's this or if it's that only, right? I think this sort of to see what they propose based again on budgets.
Okay.
How does the city view third-party, that's what we just did, right? Okay, never mind. I should cross it off when I'm reading it. How critical is direct physical connectivity between the hotel and convention center versus proximate but separate access? I think I chimed in on this one at our meeting. It is critical that there be an interior connection between the hotel and convention center. I think that's what we've asked for all along, and I don't think there was ever any lack of clarity about that.
The only note I put was, can we just talk about the why? So like explain to people why it's important to understand that it needs to happen.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
Explaining the why. Why is it important that, because it's just been something that we've directly stated, like this needs to happen, but I don't know if we've clarified why.
Why we need an indoor connection? Okay, because,
Versus like the one that the Shields Arena originally proposed, which was an open air.
Yeah.
It was covered, but it wasn't fully enclosed.
Yeah.
What would be the difference in it being a covered pathway versus it being a fully enclosed path from the hotel to the convention center?
the simple why, I think, is, I mean, we all know where we live, right? I think it's just kind of crucial that you don't want to be walking out in the elements, even if it's only one of our typical 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts, it's like,
It is a competitive thing as
Yes.
well when you're looking at other markets. If you're a meeting planner and you're like, it's January versus if it's June, right? I think that that's part of it as well. And as much as we can avoid easy boxes for meeting planners to check to say no, that would be beneficial to us. And considering, again, where we are, it's, yeah, and customer experience as well as competitiveness, I would say.
Yeah.
It goes on efficiency too, I would say, but especially if you're going to bank on having, like, the hotel having contiguous space in some sort for breakout spaces. I mean, it's kind of a gimme off the cuff.
Okay. Does the city have preferences regarding hotel flag tier, brand mix, or service level relative to convention recruitment goals? Here we decided to fall back on the preference is for a full-service hotel and just basically leave it at that. Shirley?
Yes. Yes.
I was expecting more.
No, well, I think we know with some of these guys, the flags they've been talking about. I think they're all still negotiating with whoever their partners are. There has been talk about sort of limited full service, I think, which we're open to depending upon what the flag is, the quality as well, but preferably full service. But, I think I would say we're open, but preferably full service.
I would
Just not,
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a little bit, I will use the clubhouse as an
Yeah,
example.
yeah.
We are technically a limited service, but we present as full service because we're connected to Porter Creek. They do all of our room service, they do all of our catering, they're an excellent partner. They are owned and operated separately. So optics-wise, we are a full-service property, but we're not.
I think that's going to need to fit in the big picture as well. So if we have a full-service restaurant, are they going to then ask for exclusivity on the catering? And that's where your money is when you're a convention center operator. So I think you need to walk the fine line there.
Yeah.
I think a full-service restaurant, depending on what it is, would have a hard time being able to have the capacity to service a convention. So maybe a small meeting, but I think if you have 1,000 people, I don't know that a kitchen at a full-service restaurant could actually do that. So I think that is maybe one of the things that, again, you have, what I mean? That's part of it with the hotelier, but those service kitchens, as you know, are huge. So I think that would be maybe an easy conversation.
Yeah, which brings us back to they should propose what they see in their model, but again, the preference is for a full-service hotel model, at least, Okay. Are there minimum expectations for hotel room block commitments tied to convention bookings? And how flexible are those requirements by event, size, or season? We asked Shirley and Mallory to answer this one, and they came up with, dependent on the size of meeting groups, we asked that there be a mutually agreed-upon booking window for Visit Fargo-Moorhead and/or the hotel sales department to hold blackout dates. Shirley?
Yeah, so we have done a lot of talking to other DMOs and facilities that have partnerships with convention center hotels. The way that it works best, from what we found in the industry, is if there is an agreed-upon timeline that the hotel holds blocks for the convention center, the CVB, who's ever selling, right? So if I'm trying to sell something 3 years from now, I'm going to pick on the Dome, but for no particular reason, and NDSU, I don't want NDSU to block something 5 years from now, so I don't have access to it. So that is part of conversation, that's part of partnership, that's part of, after this time, release away, because we know we can't sell it, either the convention center or us, or whatever it might be. So that seems to be best practices from the multitude of cities that we've talked to from the DMOs as well as the facilities themselves. So that is sort of what we would love to see in this partnership out the gate and figuring out those windows.
Second one, kind of similar, related anyway. How should proposers assume responsibility for shared spaces, meeting rooms, pre-function areas that may serve both the hotel and convention uses? And in this case, we said in full transparency, this would be negotiable with Visit Fargo-Moorhead and/or the Convention Center Sales Department case by case. Anything you want to add to that, Shirley? Okay. Questions?
Are they asking, who's responsible for booking, or is it more like the operational costs associated with those shared spaces?
I took it to mean booking.
Okay.
That's a good question, but so did I.
But they would, it'd also be case by case though, wouldn't it, probably?
Yeah, and I think it depends if, well, again, it's also timing. Are we talking about an event that's a month from now, 2 months, 6 months from now versus an event that's 3 years from now? I think the other part of this in the conversations when it talks to the sales and marketing side, we had very good conversations with all of them about shared calendars.
Right.
You know, tight conversation between everybody to help alleviate some of these questions or make them simple.
Yeah.
Okay, so next one, onto the next page. How does the city intend to evaluate proposals that include different allocations of construction risk, cost guarantees, or escalation assumptions? The answer with this is the city wants the developer to propose what they feel is most appropriate. Construction risks and cost guarantees will be negotiated with the highest ranking proposal. Anything you want to add to that? Anybody? That makes sense? To all our city committee members? Okay. Are there thresholds or sensitivities around total convention center project cost relative to available lodging tax proceeds that proposers should remain within? These are all multiple ways of asking the same question, I think. Am I wrong? I don't know. All proposed city responsibilities will need to be funded by the convention center budget. Costs must be within the projected $38 to $41 million budget. Financial structure and risk allocation. How does the city define acceptable levels of reliance on operating subsidies, particularly in early years of operation? City wants the developer to propose what they feel is most appropriate. Any proposed city responsibilities will need to be funded by the convention center budget. The city anticipates an operating loss outlined in the financial model of this proposal, so that's good that we put that in there. We want to know what you think it's going to be. What assumptions should be made regarding timing and availability of public funding relative to construction cash flow? Jim's answer to this was the city plans to bond for the project after a development agreement has been executed. Funds for construction are typically available within 30 to 45 days of approved invoices.
Susan, I don't know if you have any comments on that. I didn't get a chance to talk to you.
I think we would have to look at the timeline. I'm probably not going to bond right away if we don't need the cash right away. You know, if the agreement is signed and then we still have 6 to 12 months worth of, you know, phase of development and it's just some architectural costs and things, depending on when we start the tax, you know, there might be enough cash just to fund that. So I'd wait and do the bonds as long as I could. But the point is, we would have the cash ready when it's needed.
Yeah, the key thing I wanted to note here is that we're not going to bond for this until we actually have a development agreement in
Yes,
place. We're
absolutely.
not going to rush out.
The implementation of the tax actually could take place. The wording of the ballot measure was vague enough, I think, that you could, once you have picked a project and started negotiation, you could start collecting the tax.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be up to the city commission, what comfort level they would have to start the tax if they didn't have an agreement, you know, pin down the actual cost. I think they may be reluctant to start the tax until they really, you know they have a project. They certainly could, and you know, Eric's on. I think the ordinance talks about project selection, and we have to amend the ordinance too before the project it can start.
Eric, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Charlie, in that the language that the city commission approved and was voted on just talked about identifying the project. A word to that effect doesn't say you have to have a contract, but the reality is until you have a contract, you really don't have an identified project because, you know, the number one ranked proposer coming out of the second phase, we start negotiations, but if those fall apart for some reason, then we're on to number two. And so until you have a contract, I think you're probably going to have a hard time starting up the sales tax or the lodging tax.
Okay. Thanks, Eric. How does the city view private guarantees for adjacent development, and are there preferred structures or precedents? Our answer to this is the city views private guarantees to be very important and essential for proposed hotel rooms. Beyond that, we don't really have anything actually to say about it, right?
What were
Yeah.
they getting at with adjacent development, though? I mean, they're not asking, are we asking about additional construction that they're planning to do? Is that what they're fishing for?
Well, and I think the kinds of development, I think is what they're referencing.
I think both the Dome and the Shields Arena anticipated, certainly a hotel there, but maybe other restaurants and, things adjacent. But I think what I'm trying to say here is, these hotel rooms are essential because the convention center doesn't work without it, where, if you're hoping to get a Buffalo Wild Wings and you don't, well, then things can maybe still be fine.
And I do feel like we took care of this in round one because the sites were selected based on the development near the site. So,
Yeah, and again, they can propose where this might happen, but there's really no way to require how private land around it is developed.
When I read this, it got me thinking, is there more of a positive impact to the committee or the commission voting on one of these over others because of guarantees for additional development, not even expansion, but like we're gonna build $50 million of private investments. It could be restaurants and other entertainment venues and housing and things like that. And would that sway the commission to their project, everything else being equal? That's the way I read that.
Yeah, and it is and has been part of the scoring, so, we do look at it. But when push comes to shove, we'll see. But yeah, it's certainly part of the scoring, for sure. What governance structure does the city envision for convention center operations? City-led, third-party managed, hybrid? And how flexible is this in the Phase 2 evaluation? City wants proposals of what's most appropriate. Final terms will be negotiated with the highest ranked proposal. Shirley, you met with each of these groups to discuss this kind of thing recently, did you not?
Well, I think this is about who's going to run, right, operationally. They're all slightly different. I think the Dome is envisioning they would run it like with the same Dome team. From what I'm understanding, again, this is just off of our initial conversations. Everything's up for their final. I think, again, Shields being run by the same team that's running Shields Arena. Valhalla the same. And then I think, as we last saw with the Civic location, they were proposing ASM as their partner. And I don't know if, not clear on if that was sales and marketing only or if that was operational as well. So I think that's something they have yet to sort of determine. We know how our competitors are run in the region. OVG, runs Grand Forks, and Bismarck is going through a change in their management and how that's run. So people for us to watch a little bit, but some third party, some in-house. I think it just depends on what they prefer, what works. It just, as long as it's run well.
How does the city anticipate dividing responsibility between convention center management, hotel sales teams, and Visit Fargo-Moorhead? This was more of the topic of what you discussed, right?
Yeah. We discussed a little bit of it all, I think.
Yeah, sure, I don't know if you had some other language you wanted me to get in here.
Yeah, sorry about that. We talked about hotel being a hotel, and again, back to holding the room blocks that we have access to in order to book for future events. Also, again, best practices, what we're finding in regionally and nationally with these sorts of situations are Visit wherever controls the calendar, let's say 12 months and beyond for the convention center, working in tandem every day, all day long with that facility sales team. Let's say 12 months, 0 to 12 months, it really then is about the facility, because that's, I think the exciting part about that is also we typically don't sell stuff that short term. Also for me, it feels like a really great opportunity where you can help bridge the gap in any revenue. And I've talked to a few convention centers that work that way, that, the wedding, the chamber event, the family reunion, whatever it might be, that you can fit in that space within the 12 months is really where you can actually, again, close that gap. So that's kind of how we outline talking with everybody, sort of high level and what they all come back with their proposal and what we end up with. I think ideally for us would be, and again, talking with my regional counterparts, it's how it's worked best for all of them, and best practices to date that we've found in the market.
Do you want to add some language to
Yeah,
that?
sorry, Jim, we missed that one for you the other day. Sorry.
Okay. Are there policies or expectations regarding booking windows, priority access, or blackout periods? That's kind of the same thing, right? Yeah, so.
If you want to add something, let me know.
Operations, governance, and sales, how should proposers approach food and beverage exclusivity, pricing caps, and revenue sharing in the operating plan? We want them to propose what they feel is most appropriate. Flexible pricing is encouraged due to ranges of meeting planner budgets. Shirley, you want to add anything to
Yeah,
that?
the reason we added that in is this is one of those things where we are hoping with the operating team, we have flexibility. And just a really easy example, it's between us and another city. We need to come down on margin within the budget that we have for the facility in order to win the business. So being able to be flexible in those, I think we believe are key, especially in the beginning to get this facility full. And that is, I think, kind of what we want. The hope is that we can, have that kind of relationship and that ability to do that. I think that also comes to bid fees and other things that where you spend your money and how you get them in the building and get them into our community. So I think that that's partially it's a lot of what we talked about with these. Revenue sharing, we did not talk about actually at any point in time. So again, I think it would be an exclusivity. I think I would like to know what that means. Are they talking about just using their own, or is there a list? Like how are they, or their ability to, I want to know what that looks like, I think.
Okay.
And
Does
then the other key with that is that's the primary revenue driver for any
Right.
convention
Yeah.
center.
Yep.
So how this is approached is going to be very significant. And if, in fact, the financial condition and the operating revenues are an important driver in your presentation, I would take that into consideration.
Does the city have expectations for sustainability, energy performance, or operational efficiency metrics beyond code minimums? Short answer, no. Any comment? Are there immovable milestones, bond insurance, public approvals, seasonal constraints that should anchor the proposed design and construction schedule? Our answer to this is not at this time. This will be negotiated with the highest ranked proposal. The developer should propose a timeline for construction. If I asked Shirley, she'd say.
Just Charlie, on the sustainability, I think it wouldn't necessarily be a no. Don't we want it to be sustainable?
Well, it's asked if we have expectations, so, beyond code minimums.
There's a certain amount of things in the energy code and sustainability. I suppose we don't have any standards, but certainly efficiency is in a lot of the buildings.
Well, I just, a couple commissioners might comment on energy efficiency, sustainability, operating costs, those types of things. So I'm not saying they wouldn't look at that.
Yeah, so you want to change that answer to be a little more circumspect? Yes, Commissioner?
But you have to be careful because, if you want to have a LEED certified building, let's say gold or silver, it costs a lot more. And so if you say that's going to affect the cost of the building. So I think we should leave it as it is. And you obviously want to have it be an efficient building and have good things. But if you start saying, hey, we want to have these levels, it increases the cost of the building. Anyway,
But Dave, when I'm saying sustainability, it's not necessarily on the energy efficiency of the building. The sustainability to me is, I think, one of the things the commission would look at. If it's $1 million loss every year, is that sustainable? So I do know that when we look at the criteria, we're going to look at how much it costs. I'm looking at sustainable a little different than energy efficient. I'm looking at it just as, I'm not saying it's a hard no, but I do, if we have 4 proposals and 2 of them lose $1 million a year and 2 don't, we're probably going to take the one that don't lose the money,
But we have a fixed number that we have to spend. And so
Yeah.
to me, that's the thing that all these things could be incentives, but the number is the number. I guess that's my main thing. I don't know if that makes sense. Thank you.
I could, kind of building on what Dave said, just say no, but it should be an efficient building.
Yeah. Yeah, I see, I think you're looking at this from two different angles.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, from finance, obviously, we want it to be financially sustainable as best, but yeah, you and I were thinking in terms of, you know, or the green energy part of it. I don't know, we could soften that a little bit and say, you know, I don't know. What would you, yeah, how would you answer the question, Mayor, rather, if we didn't say no? I mean, how would you word it? I'm seriously, I'm asking. I'm like,
No, I think it'll be considered, but it's to Dave's comment, if it's overly expensive, it's not going to be, we wouldn't go with it. But it's just the sustainability more is the operational efficiency or cost would be more what we would look at. But it's mixing all those words, right? We've all said that it has to stand on its own, so.
we could say, we could say, you want to say something like, these factors will be considered relative to construction costs.
Yeah.
How's that?
And maybe there's an expectation that it is at code. Instead of no, it's just, there's an expectation the building will follow.
I mean, it feels
Code
like
minimums.
this section, this question, I would guess from the developer is about Commissioner Pepcorn's comment. Right, if this
Yeah,
needs to be
maybe.
LEED certified, this has a higher cost, and we need to know what that minimum standard is,
So do we.
which is
does this
different than
answer seem to deal with that?
sustainability financially.
If you don't just want to say no, you could say, we expect you to follow best practices. We don't have any minimum guidelines
Yeah,
for
that could be
LEED
true.
certification or something.
Okay. We already talked about the timeline. How much flexibility does the city anticipate in negotiating Phase 3 terms relative to what's submitted in Phase 2? Jim came up with city anticipates some flexibility, but not on major components to the Phase 2 proposal. Make sense to everybody? Okay, next page. Is this the last page? It's the last page. Are there specific concerns raised during preliminary city department reviews that proposers should actively address in Phase 2 responses? The answer here that we came up with is concerns that have been raised should be addressed in the Phase 2 response. It's the responsibility of the developer to continue to communicate with city departments.
Isn't that what they had the meetings with, the cities?
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So if something came up, and that's kind of what it say, if something came up there, it's up to you to follow up on it. Okay? How will qualitative elements such as day in the life visitor experience be weighted relative to cost and schedule certainty? We talked about this a little bit the other day, and I think it's important to those of us who come out of the DMO world that the visitor experience is a vital component of this process and should be treated as such. A positive experience means potential return visits, not to mention positive reputation within the networks of the people who visit here. So you can't downplay that, right, Shirley?
Nope.
Okay. Finally, does the city anticipate requesting best and final offers or additional clarification rounds following Phase 2? At this time, the city does not anticipate an additional clarification round. City plans to negotiate with the highest ranked proposal. If an agreement is not reached, negotiation would begin with the second highest ranked proposal. Does that fit with the feelings of our commissioners? Yes?
That's what's in the RFP right now, so unless we're
Yeah.
gonna change it.
And I assume, Charlie, the Phase 2 submission comes with a presentation.
Yes, yes. Yeah, there will be a presentation. In case anybody was wondering. We're going to be very busy in March. Okay, thank you. Any questions or follow-up on any of this? Jim's going to update a couple of those answers. Shirley's going to help him with a couple. And then you'll put these answers on the website?
We get them on the website and we'll send them out to the developers.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Huh?
Well, you want to know we had a quorum. We have a quorum, and I know you want to vote on something, Charlie, so we have to just approve everything you just did, so move to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
Yeah,
Okay.
second it.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I just have a question about scheduling. Are you, how?
We're not adjourning, we're just approving those things.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so, yeah. He said approve, not adjourn, so. No, we're not done yet. All in favor of approving as provided? Yes?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Same sign? Carried. Yeah. Yeah, okay. I wanted to just discuss briefly the idea of public comment because Commissioner Strand has brought this up multiple times when I've been at the city commission meetings, and I certainly understand his concerns. Here's what I propose, and if anybody disagrees or wants to do more or less, let me know. I think when we get the final 4 proposals, they will be posted on the city website. I believe it would be appropriate to have a place where people online could make comments. I would not propose to guarantee that we bring those comments to discussions here at the subsequent meetings, but I would suggest then that all committee members look at them, and if a committee member thinks there's something in those comments that needs to be addressed that we haven't talked about, then it would be fine for one of the committee members to bring that to whatever the next meeting is. That's what I think we should do.
Can I just add real quick that the public is welcome at this meeting?
Absolutely.
And I think everybody here, we would love to visit with them at any time too, especially at this meeting. If anybody ever wants to come here and talk to any of us, we're here. And so I think that's part of it too.
And I think all of us have received comments from the public. But so there's a place where if people want to make a specific comment, hopefully it'll be kind and gentle and and meaningful. I think that's okay, and then it'll be up to the committee members to decide if any of it should actually come to the committee meeting. Mayor?
Well, just a clarification what this committee is versus the commission. So in a sense, this committee is supposed to help us select the site 1, 2, 3, 4. And when we go to the commission with your final recommendation, there's opportunity for public comment. Anybody can public comment. I like your idea online. You got something, you say, hey, I see something, you guys are missing this or missing that, and any one of us can bring that forth.
Yeah.
This group has really worked hard on this, and you guys have looked at everything. But a convention center is, in my mind, a unique animal. It's not like a library. It's not like, some things we do in public areas, right? A road, 64th interchange, we take public comment. But I think the structure, what the legislature want to have, they wanted the public to have an opportunity at some point to weigh in on what they might want to think about. And for Dave and I, it's accomplished when it finally goes to the commission, this is the recommendation. And somebody can stand and turn to the commissioners and say, hey, your committee missed it. You guys didn't do this, this, and we'll listen to it. But I like your idea. They can comment if they see something we're missing or, and sometimes in fairness, somebody says you're not being fair to group number 2 because you didn't consider this or whatever. I mean, just the thing you talked about today about having it attached, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think about the reason I want it attached is I don't have to wear a coat. I can walk from my room out to the convention center, right?
Yeah. That's the reason.
And conventions I go to, sometimes you carry a coat, and then what do? You're stuck with a coat all day to try to figure out what to do with it.
We should require a cloakroom.
Yeah. And so I think, Dave, we will get our public comment, but I like your idea that people want to come, they see our final 4 and see what goes on and whatever.
Yeah.
But they're not voting. And I like John's idea, but the public isn't voting on it. This committee's voting on it. And this committee was selected to do this. And I would challenge the public. Every committee member has taken this really seriously. Every one of you has really, I think, done an outstanding job. And it's interesting because sometimes you sit and say the public process isn't going to work. It's working on this.
Working.
I think we've had really good input. I think every one of you has taken it seriously. I mean, you actually do your homework. Even then Charlie makes us go through these questions, but you do your homework. But I think that's a reasonable way to do it, Charlie.
Thank you.
Which is,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I'm not proposing at all that we have a public comment period at a meeting, but I just want to have the chance for people to submit something, and then it's up to the committee if they want to bring it. So that's great. Thank you.
So for clarity, Charlie, you're looking at the developers presenting to us, and
Yep.
during that time,
Yeah.
people can make comments related to the presentations and things we should consider per development, per each project, or are they open to anything they want to add?
They can propose they can make any comment they want.
Sure.
That's the way I look at it. But this, again, it's not going to come to this committee unless one of us committee members.
But we're charged with reading, we'll read them.
Yeah, so yes, we want the committee members to look at them, before and in between meetings. So looks to me like the proposals are due at 4 PM on February 27th. So we got some time here. And these aren't going to be, we're not going to open the public comment period until the final proposals are on the website. Because that's kind of pointless at this point. So, and then we will meet March 5th, 6th, and 13th is our plan. Our scoring, we anticipate being due by March 18th is the last time, what we suggested. Then we'll probably have a meeting to go over the scoring and invite HVS. We'll have them do scoring independently again like they did before. And then hopefully by March 30th, we will present our final recommendation to the City Commission.
Can I ask you a favor? If you wouldn't mind, send us an email with a summary of those dates so we kind of
Okay.
know what the important dates are
Yeah.
that we have to be for sure, if you don't mind. Just to kind of a quick overview so we can get that all on our calendars and all that stuff.
I
Thank you.
think I have sent, I will double check. I think I've sent all the calendar invites to everyone, but I can send you a sheet. I'll double check against that calendar and I'll send you a sheet next week.
I hate to bring this up because I know we've talked about the schedule several times, but I'm just curious if everyone thinks an entire, or 1 week is enough time to review all those 4 proposals prior to the presentation, or if perhaps 2 weeks would be better. I just personally went through 5 parking RFPs at 150 pages apiece, and it was more than a 1 week project.
Committee members?
Well, the schedule are 2 in 1 week,
2, yes. So
and
that-
then 1 the following week. It's like a Thursday, Friday, or Wednesday, Thursday, and then the following week. And a week,
the presentations are going to be on back-to-back days.
all 3
March
of them?
5th and 6th, yes.
Okay.
Okay. I'd have to look at the calendar.
Yeah.
So we consolidated those into 1 week because we gave them an extra 4 weeks to submit based on what we had originally talked about, well, what I had talked about, and you guys all thought, and right, they should have more time. But we didn't see any reason why we had to separate the presentations by a week. So,
I think Susan will answer that question. If we get it and we feel we want another week or so, we can take it. I don't see any issue.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a lot of ask to bring your national contractor. I mean, like, people are going to need to set dates, so,
people are going to what?
well, people are going to need to adjust their schedules and things, so for us to change it at the last
Yeah.
minute, I think we should maybe be.
Well,
a
we
little more-
we could set that schedule today if we wanted to, and they could plan ahead, because we know who the 4 finalists are. They're all going to make a presentation either on the 5th or the 6th.
I think one of them has going to have
but
some
you're-
trouble with that, is the issue, so we might need to come up with a backup.
Okay, well, we'll reach out to them and see what they say.
Okay.
I think there was one that one day worked and the other day didn't, but
I heard that there's another one that most of their people are out of the country on vacation, and it's just not going to work.
We'll reach out to them and see,
Okay.
but they're going to have to be pretty indisposed to convince me that we ought to change our schedule for them.
I'm just going to warn you, like, 1 week is not much time to go through all of those either. So I think that that's really kind of aggressive.
Well, phase 1, I mean, didn't we go through 9 of them? First round,
We did.
in a week? Yeah. What?
These will be more in depth, I'm guessing, is your comment, is your concern? Because it is helpful to read them all at once versus like reading the first 2, watching the proposals, and then reading the next 2. I think it's a better frame of mind to read them in one sitting, or read them together.
I would, as a devil's advocate, not that I always am, but from my perspective, separating them by a week makes me go back and look at them more. Now, you could say that's good or bad, but I think having it in the same week to see all the presentations, they're all fresher in my memory. Because I felt a little bit of that when we went through the 9 of them. I had to really go back and look at the earlier ones because you get caught up in the new ones. So we have fewer to do, and if we put them closer together, that's just my personal.
But are you saying maybe maybe we move it, give an extra week to review, and then instead of the 5th and 6th or whatever those dates are, sorry, I don't have my calendar pulled up, do like the let's add 12th and 13th?
Yeah, just so you
Do
let-
them that week, and then
Still back to back, because you don't want to necessarily give one an advantage of having an extra
Correct.
day or be able to watch the other ones.
But give the committee an extra
Yeah, it's the
time.
committee that I'm thinking about.
Yeah, got it. Okay,
If we did that, we already have held the 13th.
right.
So one of those days is held, we just would need to hold the 12th.
It's just
to-
really pushing everything back a week, is what you're saying, and then it's just if we can make the city commission meetings on the 30th, if it'd have to push back 2 weeks potentially, you know,
I
I don't want
I
to
don't
push
mean-
things either, but I do agree.
Well, what we're looking at, what we're talking about here is more time for the committee to look at the proposals before the presentations.
And to be
That's the
flexible, I
crux of
think,
this
and I
question.
think she's saying also potentially being flexible with dates for the builders.
Yeah.
Let's start with the builders. Yeah.
Okay, we'll start with them and see, and if we have to adjust, we will. So, Commissioner Dave, you might have to wait a little bit to get your rundown of the dates until we double check all of that then. Yeah. No, I know, things change, it's, yeah, but we set this, you know, we set this publicly like in October.
Yeah, I
That's
I
when
think
we
you have to stay
finalize
on
this.
schedule.
Yeah. But we'll discuss with them and see if there are any serious conflicts with it. Okay. I guess we
We
kind
can
of,
scream when we see them all and say, this is too much, we want a little more time. We have all the time in the world once we get them, but I'd really like to see them.
I think what's being said, though, is if
Keep
they
some
have to
papers
schedule their time to come, we want to make sure they know as soon as possible. That's what you're saying? Yeah.
Can't wait till we get them and then say, oh, now we need 2 more weeks. Sorry, you were the 6th, now you're the
No,
9th.
I think that we would planning on booking those now. I think we should for sure, 1,000%, yeah.
and then if we find out that someone. Sorry. Then if we find out that someone can't do it, we can try to arrange another date, maybe that week or maybe right away the next week.
Just concerned for all of you that that's a lot to read in a week, and to digest.
Committee members?
Right now, I'd go with just, let's keep it as is and deal with a lot of work that week.
I concur. I'm comfortable as it stands currently also.
But with the possibility that if there is some immovable conflict for a developer or two,
Right.
then we may change those meetings. Okay, so, okay, you'll reach out to them? You want me to do it? We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Okay, we'll take care of it. Okay. Mayor, you need a motion to adjourn? We don't need it. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. I agree with the mayor, by the way. You've all done a great job. We've been together a year now, so fortunately, we've had some hiatus. So we'll be in touch. We'll let you know what happens after we work with those schedules.